first time ever.
Warning acts of terror.
We are ready to engage with a two-state solution.
Some of his most senior cabinet members
The drivers of a new economic age.
Hello futurists, welcome back to MND Intel. Big development from Brussels. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio is reportedly planning to skip the next NATO foreign ministers meeting at a moment when Europe and Ukraine are reeling under intense diplomatic turbulence. In this video, we'll break down what it means, why it matters, and how Kyiv and Brussels might respond. So let's begin with the background. What's the meeting and what's at stake? Each year, North Atlantic Treaty Organization NATO convenes its foreign ministers twice to coordinate alliances wide political diplomatic strategy. Now, attendance from major powers, especially the United States, is considered a key signal of unity. The next meeting is scheduled in Brussels on 3rd December 2025. But sources now indicate that Rubio may not attend, sending Deputy Secretary Christopher Landau in his place. Now, US officials described the absence as highly unusual. Why this is a big deal, especially now? The agenda is likely to be dominated by the war in Ukraine, the US backed or mediated peace plan and security guarantees for Kyiv. So given the timing with controversial proposals, shifting loyalties and deep skepticism within European capitals, United States representation at the highest level could have helped manage tensions or reassure the allies. Now, skipping such a meeting when the stakes are so high sends a strong, perhaps unintended signals. What's happening in Ukraine's diplomacy and the NATO's role in it? Recently, the United States and Ukraine, under immense pressure, have been negotiating a peace plan to end Russia's invasion. Now, that plan, backed by United States, has drawn criticism from European allies who claim it appears overly favorable to Russia. Meanwhile, European governments and Kyiv have voiced fears of being sidelined in the decision making if Washington alone shapes the narrative, raising concerns about the alliance's unity. So in such a moment, a full-throttle United States presence in Brussels could have helped assuage doubts, provide clarity, and reinforce transatlantic solidarity. Now, with Rubio's anticipated absence, these tasks become harder, giving space for uncertainty and distrust to grow among allies. Now, what Rubio's absence could signal? Certain strategic and symbolic implications can be predicted. First, questioning United States' commitment to NATO and the European security. Now, the US is viewed as NATO's anchor. When its top diplomat is absent from a major meeting, especially during a crisis, it sends signal that Washington is prioritizing collective diplomacy. Allies may read this as a shift toward unilateralism or transactional diplomacy under the current United States administration. Second, undermining NATO's unity at a sensitive moment. Now, given divergent views within NATO itself on how to handle Ukraine war and peace negotiations, unity and coherent messaging matter more than ever. Now, the absence of a key United States figure reduces the chance of coherent alliance level decisions, potentially fragmenting positions. Third, empowering hardliners or Russia-friendly diplomacy. With the United States absent at top table, Russia-friendly proposals or negotiations that downplay Ukraine's interests may gain traction. European allies and Kyiv could find themselves negotiating in a weaker multilateral environment. Fourth, domestic and global perception risk. Now, for Kyiv, it may erode confidence in Western support. For Europe, it risks alienating allies who expected firm US presence. And for Russia, it could be seen as a strategic win, weakening collective Western will. Now, why might Rubio be skipping? Now, let's explore some possible reasons for this strategic absence, though none are officially confirmed. Scheduling or maybe diplomatic priorities elsewhere. US officials claim that Rubio has attended dozens of other meetings with allies. Recently, they argue expecting presence at every formal gathering is impractical. Managing domestic United States political constraints. The US under current administration may want to avoid being pinned down in a binding NATO consensus, while pushing its own peace paradigm for Ukraine potentially controversial among the allies. Now, desire for flexibility in US, Russia and Ukraine diplomacy. By not locking into a collective NATO position publicly, the US may be preserving flexibility to negotiate bilateral or ad hoc deals without alliances constraints, signaling a shift in US strategy from collective to bilateral diplomacy. If the US increasingly prefers bilateral negotiations over alliance-based diplomacy, skipping NATO meeting could become a part of that trend. However, none of these reasons entirely justify the symbolic cost at this critical time, especially for the Ukraine's allies. So what could be the fallout? Let's understand that. For Ukraine, increased diplomatic uncertainty, allies may hesitate to commit security guarantees if US seems half present. Then risk of weakened negotiating position. Vice versa, Russia especially under pressure to accept unfavorable peace terms. So for NATO and Europe, growing doubts about US reliability, some members might look for alternatives, perhaps deeper European strategic autonomy or seeking other partners. Then internal divisions may widen countries, favoring strong Ukraine support versus those leaning towards realpolitik or appeasement. For global geopolitics, Russia might interpret this as a weakening of transatlantic cohesion, emboldening Moscow's war aims. The other rivals, China, regional adversaries, might see cracks in Western alliances, recalibrating their strategies accordingly. So what is the strategic takeaway here? We must watch certain things. We must monitor how much European capitals publicly react. Strong pushback could force United States to send a higher level representative last minute. Watch whether NATO issues a unified communique on Ukraine peace plan, whose absence would show the real cost of missing United States presence. Observe reactions in Kyiv, whether Ukraine becomes more open to alternative peace frameworks or seeks bilateral security deals outside NATO. Medium term, assess whether US is shifting to a bilateral plus transactional diplomacy model over multilateral alliance base, which would reshape the global security architecture. So, for our MND futurist audiences, Rubio's reported decision to skip the NATO meeting, even if logistically justified, carries symbolic weight far beyond attendance. At a time when the war in Ukraine, NATO, unity and transatlantic cohesion are on the line, absence equals the message. For strategic analysts, it's now vital to watch not just what's being said, but who sits at the table. As Ukraine's future and European security hang in balance, United States' commitment in presence and posture remains critical. That's all from my side in this edition of MND Intel. If you find this analysis useful, do like, do share, and do subscribe and stay alert, stay strategic. I'll see you in the next video. Jai Hind and Jai Bharat.